Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I wouldn't call him a vaccine skeptic. I would call him a vaccine denialist. And yeah, he now has the keys to America's health castle. He is in charge of all of our federal public health agencies, and it's been long a dream of his to attack vaccines and to spread myths about vaccines. And he now has the power to do that. And we are seeing just yesterday, we set the 30-year record for the highest number of cases of measles in the United States, and it's probably only going to get worse from here, unfortunately.
We've heard how Donald Trump wants to be the peacemaker in the Middle East. He said the same about Ukraine. But his administration is also accused of waging a war, not on a country, but vaccines. At the centre of the story is Robert F. Kennedy, longtime vaccine skeptic, and now the US Health Secretary. He wants new research on whether vaccines cause autism, a theory long ago debunked. Government health bodies have scrapped deals for new vaccines, removed recommendations for others, and curbed research into mRNA, the technique which powered the COVID jabs. So what's going on? Well, with me is Jonathan Howard, a US clinician and author who's closely studied medical misinformation. He's Associate Professor of Neurology at New York University. Hello to you, Jonathan. Explain why these changes that are being made are so significant.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. As you said, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I wouldn't call him a vaccine skeptic. I would call him a vaccine denialist. And yeah, he now has the keys to America's health castle. He is in charge of all of our federal public health agencies, and it's been long a dream of his to attack vaccines and to spread myths about vaccines. And he now has the power to do that. And we are seeing just yesterday, we set the 30-year record for the highest number of cases of measles in the United States, and it's probably only going to get worse from here, unfortunately.
Well, and that is the significance, of course, and the consequences. We're also seeing some developments here with regard to measles too. But the specific changes are significant because they obviously set in train what you are predicting will just get worse.
Yeah, so far he's been able to only have minimal effects. One of our leaders of the FDA, our Food and Drug Administration, on his own countermanded recommendations from scientists there to approve COVID vaccines for healthy people under age 65. And so Kennedy is trying to sabotage that as well as for pregnant women. They are beginning to investigate other vaccines as well. And there's no question what those are going to find, so-called find. He's going to use that to try to undermine confidence in other vaccines. And he is relitigating battles that were settled 30 years ago about preservatives in vaccines as well, all just trying to contribute to a climate of fear and doubt about vaccines. That's what he does better than anyone, spread doubt.
Why is there so much traction for it then, if, as you say, so many of these issues have been long settled? Being able to revive it in the way that he is able to, why is it so successful?
Well, the vast majority of parents still want to vaccinate their children, and we need to remember that. But all it takes is a relatively small number, 5 to 10%, and we will to stop vaccinating their children, and we will lose herd immunity to once vanquished diseases. And he's successful because he's been doing this for 20 years, and it's very easy to scare parents about chemicals and pharmaceutical companies and injections while making the diseases that they prevent, like measles, seem benign. It's just a natural virus that creates a couple days in bed, and then you'll have immunity to last the rest of your life naturally. So these techniques have been practiced over decades, and we have lost memory of what these viruses can do, and we may learn again the hard way, unfortunately.
Right. It's interesting you say that we've lost memory about the achievements and success of vaccines. Is there also, to put it sort of gently, a failure on behalf of perhaps people like you and your colleagues to actually keep reiterating how important and critical vaccines are to our future health?
Well, I do think that there was a failure during regarding the COVID pandemic. I think a lot of doctors, such as myself, were braver running into the rooms to treat COVID patients than they were
Mm.
pushing back on medical misinformation pushed by our own profession. And COVID showed that we can have a tolerance for tragedies here in the United States and not really blink too hard about them. During the worst months of the pandemic here in the United States, that would be January and February 2022, during the Omicron wave, we lost close to 200 children, but still there was a powerful movement not to vaccinate children against COVID. And it just shows that there's a sort of, we unfortunately learned how to look the other way.
Right. So, what is it behind the anti vax movement then in the US? Is it ideological or bad actors trying to cause trouble? Some even reckon Putin's propaganda machine plays a role, or maverick doctors with an ego trying to make a name for themselves.
All of the above. I mean, the anti-vaccine movement is as old as vaccines themselves. It even preceded Edward Jenner. The first known vaccinator was in the UK, a man by the name of Benjamin Jesty, who was an English farmer who vaccinated his children against smallpox. He just didn't get the credit that Edward Jenner did, but he was reviled. So vaccines have always been something to attack because, as I said, they're seen as sort of unnatural. The good that they do is invisible. Like, I don't go home every day and celebrate the fact that I didn't get polio and measles. And so we don't really know who is, on an individual level, who is specifically protected from diseases thanks to vaccines. And I think it's a combination of all of the above. I think that there are people who truly believe vaccines are dangerous and the diseases that they prevent against are benign. I think that there's a lot of doctors, as you said, ego. They just have to feel that they know so much better than everyone else and they're so much smarter and nuanced. And then, yeah, there's a lot of bad faith interventions, actors possibly from abroad. You can become famous, you can become rich if you become anti-vaccine. Getting invited to speak and have people subscribe to your Substack and YouTube channels. So there's a lot of rewards for being anti-vaccine, especially if you're someone who has credentials.
Right. There is also an issue, though, of trust. And obviously, during the COVID pandemic, people had access to an awful lot of information. And somehow there was a feeling by people who were skeptical about vaccines that they weren't being told the full information about COVID vaccines, that it was being shut down, that everyone should just take it as truth, that vaccines are a good thing and there are no downsides. Do you think that was a mistake?
I think a lot of people definitely overhyped vaccines at the beginning. That would be about 4 years ago. But that includes a lot of the people who are trying to take away vaccines today. Not Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but a lot of the people who are working for him. For example, the head of our NIH, the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, vastly overpromised vaccines 4 years ago, claiming they wiped out disease and blocked transmission. So did the current heads of our Food and Drug Administrations, Dr. Marty Makary and Vinay Prasad, also way overhyped vaccines 4 years ago. And when they failed to completely end the pandemic, unfortunately, rather than admit error, they turned against them. That turned against vaccines, that is. And you're exactly right. They weaponized doubt to spread mistrust and anger. And I think we do have to have a little bit of grace for the fact that this was everyone's first pandemic. These vaccine technologies were brand new and the virus changed in very rapid and unpredictable ways. But yes, I definitely think that vaccines were overhyped 4 years ago. But not all of that was just by people making innocent mistakes. I think a lot of people overhyped them because they wanted the pandemic to be over. And those are now a lot of the same people who are trying to spread doubt and mistrust successfully.
Right. To come to today and the administration in the White House, are you going as far as saying that anti-vaxxers have taken over?
Parts of it. There are certainly the anti-vaxxers have taken over the heads of a lot of these departments, and they're trying to work their way in. There's a lot of career officials who are still remaining at our CDC, the Center for Disease Control, and the FDA, who are doing their best to push back, and I applaud them for it. I hope that they stay, but we'll see how long that they last. But there was a recent meeting of our ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Had purged all previous 17 members, and these were respected vaccine scientists, and replaced them with 8 people of his own choosing who have various qualifications ranging from pretty good to totally non-existent. And I think that there was, during the recent meeting, as I said, there was a clash between the career CDC officials who were trying to prevent accurate information and some of the anti-vaccine advocates
Yes.
who frankly embarrassed themselves.